Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. My name's Acacia. Today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up. It's a little late, but I had other things that had to come first, so it just ended up being later. I also reviewed several of these books in my Thrillerathon wrap-up. I'll link that up in the cards. I went a little more into depth of those books, which is the majority of these books. So you're going to get more thoughts on the 3 books that aren't from Thrillerathon than you are the books from Thrillerathon. So just bear with me. These are in order, least to most enjoyed, as always. Let's dive in. So the first one we have is the Black Dahlia. This is by James Ellroy. It's a fictionalized depiction of the Black Dahlia murder in terms of what happened afterwards and the work that the detectives did. I hated this book. I thought it was absolutely terrible, and it's also the first in a series, and this doesn't... There's no call for this to be a series. It's not... There's no point to this being a series. It's ridiculous, and I was not impressed. Then we have The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I will read almost anything that Riley Sager comes out with. I didn't like this one as much as Final Girls, though. I felt it was rushed and overly simplified. So that's that. Then a book that was not in my Thrillerathon wrap-up. This is the Flying Troutmans. This is by Miriam Towes. This was sent to me by the publisher, Counterpoint Press. I have liked everything that I've read by Miriam so far. This one was not as good, though. I was not as impressed. This one is the story of a girl who gets dumped by her boyfriend, comes home to find her sister in a psych ward, and is left in charge of her sister's 2 boys, and then goes on a road trip with them to try and find their father. I'm not a road trip person. I don't enjoy them that much. The one time I've enjoyed it was Vivian versus the Apocalypse. But other than that, I just don't find them as fascinating as I would like to. I liked this book as far as the overall conversation went. Like, I loved the themes. I liked the ideas and the conversations and how it went down, but I didn't like the execution. I didn't enjoy the road trip aspect of it. So I would recommend it if you like Miriam's writing. I'm going to be doing an author spotlight on Miriam, so I'll talk more in depth about this there. Then I read this on the recommendation of Mercedes. I'd owned it for like 2 years. This is After the Eclipse, a mother's murder and a daughter's search by Sarah Perry. I was not as blown away as Mercedes was by this. I felt less entwined in it, and I also, after having watched Mercedes' video, I'll link it up in the cards, I had a lot of crisis within myself to kind of figure out why I would like true crime books that don't focus on the victim. And I came to the realization that I'm so fascinated by the psychology of a murderer, because it's something that's so commonly would be associated with a person with mental health issues, that I just have to understand why a person with a neurotypical brain would do it, and I don't understand why a person with mental health issues would do it either. I honestly believe that the mental health issues are not what drives a person to murder. A person has to be capable of murder prior to the mental health issues. Or despite the mental health issues. So I find that whole conversation very fascinating. This was interesting. It was the story of her mother from beginning to end, and a little bit into the conversation of what happened to the person who was convicted, but I just wasn't thrilled. Then we have The Chalk Man by C.J. Tudor. This was fine. I liked it. I was amused from beginning to end. And I found it easy to read. So, if you want to know more, just watch my Thriller-a-thon wrap-up, which was linked in the cards earlier. Then I buddy read with Amanda Center, whose channel I will link up in the cards. This is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. We'd buddy read this before in 2017, and then we buddy read it again this year. And I think we both came away with more appreciation and more love for this book than we had the first time around. I really appreciated Helen's character, and I felt she was more of a bold feminist than I did the first time around. I really thought she had more drive and more effortless just power than she really realized, especially when she leaves an abusive relationship. We did have an interesting conversation about the abusive relationship and how she goes back to take care of her abuser in sickness, and I made the argument that it's really part of the abuse cycle, that a person who is abused would go back to the abuser regardless of what they know, in order to avoid more abuse. They almost are conditioned. And it was interesting to see this story really work for the current day world and relationships that are now. I really appreciated it and I liked it quite a bit. So I would recommend that if you're interested in reading a new Bronte and you haven't read Anne Bronte yet. This is the other Miriam Towes I read. This is A Complicated Kindness. This one was way more up my alley. This is the story of a girl who is living in a, I want to call it Mennonite. Yes, Mennonite group. And her sister and mother disappear, and she and her father are just kind of left to figure out what's going on. And she's a chicken caretaker, so a chicken farmer. It was interesting. It was deeper than I expected. It had a lot of conversations of faith and safety in cult-like environments, and how that would be executed if you were not following the rules precisely. And it was just really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I definitely would recommend it if you're interested in cult conversations. There we go. This was a good one. I definitely would recommend this one. So I'll talk about that more in my author spotlight. That won't be for a couple of months because I'm still waiting on her other 2 books to arrive, and then I have to read them, and I also have to read My Puny Sorrows and reread Women Talking, so that will be at a later date, but it's coming. Another cult book. This is Laura Elizabeth Woolett. This is Beautiful Revolutionary. I read this for Thriller-a-thon because it has to do with the Jim Jones, there we go, Jim Jones People's Temple, and it's the story of a girl who follows Jim Jones, and it's really well done. I really enjoyed it, and that's all I'm going to say here. If you want to know more, go to my Thriller-a-thon video. I don't have a book here, so I'll just mention it at the end because it was my favorite. The Silent Patient by Alex Michaldo. This was a story of a woman who goes silent after murdering her husband, and it was dark, it was quick, it was easy, it was a day read, no problem. I liked it as a thriller, and I would definitely recommend it. My second favorite book of the month was a reread. This is Alice by Christina Henry. I've loved this book for years now. It was good to reread it and kind of get a second look at it, and I still thought it held up and was wonderful. This is the story of Alice, who is put into a mental ward after she comes home one day with blood dripping down her leg and claims that she saw someone and something bad happened to her, and instead of taking care of her, her family stick her in an asylum, and then in the beginning of the book she escapes the asylum with a man named Hatchet. And it's very much a horror. It's a horror. It's really scary. It has really dark elements and it gets really twisted. So if you like Alice in Wonderland, this is a good dark version. It's not identical and there's elements of it, but there's a lot of the same characters that pop up, but it gets weird. It gets weird. So the last book and my favorite of the month was The Alienist. I really kind of went on to a rant on that in my Thriller-a-thon wrap-up, so I will let you guys see that in my Thriller-a-thon wrap-up if you haven't already. I'll just tell you right now that I gave it 5 stars and it might be one of my favorite books of the year. I really liked it a lot. So definitely a recommendation, and I would say you guys should check it out if you haven't already. So, this has been my video. I hope you guys liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, click that subscribe button down below. Thank you to my Patreons. I love each and every one of you. I'll talk to you in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video.